everybody will be looking at Leicester and going, you are fully bottling this now. If you get to this point in the season and you are top of the league by however many points and then you drop off so suddenly that they have, unfortunately you can only be labelled as bottlers.
They look like the heads are completely gone. The confidence just isn't there anymore. The way things are going, if this were to continue, Justin, we might not have a top 2 race in a few weeks' time because Ipswich and Leeds may just go up comfortably. Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the Good Friday to my Great Friday. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Oh, Justin, Easter weekend is upon us, and that means we've got a load of bloody games for us to talk about from Good Friday. How was it for you, Justin? Did you have a great Friday?
I had a great Friday, yeah. I went out for some food. You can't complain after a big round of games. I was sincerely pleased. Derby won as well. They're coming up to the Championship. We're going to be able to talk about them next season, hopefully, and I can rant about them all episode, all the way through episodes. It's going to be fantastic. I'm buzzing. I had a great Friday. Did you have a great Friday?
Well, now that I've heard that you had a great Friday, then yes, I did have a great Friday. It's got to be said, if that's a billing for the Championship next season, listening to this podcast so we can hear you moan about Derby every single week, then I tell you what, we're going to be dragging in the listeners, Justin.
Yeah, everyone's going to want to know what it's like being a Derby fan and what it's like being in the head of a Derby fan, and they're going to know. They're going to find out because the Rams are coming back, baby, and there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Yeah, well, Bolton might have something to do about it.
No.
There's still a few games to go. Obviously, I think just looking at the table now, Derby played a game more than Bolton, haven't they? But they are 6 points ahead. So, you know, it's looking like the Rams will be back in the Championship, but you know, it's not all said and done just yet, Peachy.
And we can say that about the Championship because it's been a topsy-turvy game weekend. There you go. Nice segue.
Justin, it was a great Friday, wasn't it? Welcome to the number one Championship podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yes, as Justin was alluding to, we did have a topsy-turvy Friday on our hands here in the Championship. I mean, the top of the table is all over the place right now, isn't it? So we'll talk about that very shortly, as especially what's happened with Leicester City. And we'll also talk about the relegation battle because there's been quite a bit of movement there as well. I'm also going to be doing the polls and Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight right at the end of the show as well. So, Justin, let's kick things off with Bristol City 1, Leicester City 0. It means Leicester have now won just 4 points from an available 18 and have dropped down to third. And look, Justin, we've been saying the international break has come at a really good time for Leicester. It meant they had the chance to have a breather and get things back on track. If this showing was anything to go by, the international break has done absolutely nothing because Leicester were really poor here.
Yeah, they were. They were so poor. I was actually surprised at how poor they were in possession, actually, because it's their main attribute, their ability to control games. But even after going behind, they were rushed, they were wasteful. I know they created chances through Jamie Vardy, and Vardy absolutely should have put them away. I mean, Max O'Leary in the Bristol City goal was fantastic. He stood up to the challenges posed by him by one of England's greatest ever goal scorers. But unfortunately, Leicester didn't take those chances, didn't take those moments. They were poor in possession. They lost. I wouldn't say they lost their heads, but they weren't composed. They weren't controlled. They were anything but an Enzo Maresca team from this season. And I tell you what, Hamza Chowdhury did his very best to ensure that Leicester did not take the 3 points back to the East Midlands because he was so poor.
Well, I mean, he wasn't the only one. He was really poor, was he? And you're right to point out Jamie Vardy missing 2 absolute sitters. You would have put your house on him scoring then, particularly with his recent form as well. But for large spells of the game, Bristol City were the better side. Yeah. And this is a Bristol City team, by the way, who have been well out of form. 5 losses from 6 prior to this. But this was like watching 2 mid-table sides. You wouldn't have guessed Leicester had as many talented players as they have because they just didn't show it at all. Everyone looked so short of confidence and they really struggled to control the game. They looked rattled. You know, the likes of Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, for example, just didn't have any influence on the game like he was having earlier in the season. And so many other players just didn't put their stamp on this game at all. And maybe it's a bit unfair to single out Dewsbury Hall in particular, but he is probably, in terms of talent, the best player in the Championship. So you'd expect it to have more of an influence. But look, if this happened a few days after a loss, this performance, I could perhaps understand it. But they've had weeks to try and reset, which makes this all the more alarming. And as you said on Thursday, Justin, those alarm bells are chiming louder than ever before. It's like bloody Big Ben, isn't it?
It is. It honestly is. I think you said something there, actually, which really caught my ear. The fact that these two sides look like two mid-table teams yesterday. And I think Bristol City would go into that and think, OK, we'll take that. We'll happily be called a mid-table team. But Leicester, you call them a mid-table team. It's like, how bad is their season gone? Or has become, and that they're now being described as a mid-table team, or they look like a mid-table team. It's really, really poor, and the drop-off is quite staggering. And as I say, they did have chances, and they did open Bristol City up. But I think in terms of sustained quality and overall performance, Bristol City fully deserved the 3 points. They were the better team. Leicester had their moments, they didn't take them. And unfortunately, as you say, they're just not good enough. They haven't been good enough. Too many players, too many individuals didn't show up. Dewsbury Hall lost the ball 25. Like, he lost possession 25 times in the game. It's not speaking of a player who we've described as the best player in the division. And unfortunately, Maresca's got to find a way to get those individuals coming back up to the fore, because, as I say, Chowdhury was really poor. Dewsbury Hall was poor. A lot of players were really poor. Jamie Vardy missed chances. It's not good enough, and that's why you've got to start questioning Maresca, whether he's too stubborn to change things, whether he's good enough from a man manager perspective to bring the players up. There are a lot of question marks being fired at the Pep disciple.
Well, let me ask you about him, Justin, because Enzo Maresca said after the game that he's confident Leicester will still get automatic promotion. Are you as confident as him, Justin?
No, absolutely not. No. He has to be confident. He can't say, actually, no, yeah, we're shitting it now, we're bricking it. He can't say that because he's the leader of the club. He's the voice, he's the man. He can't say that. But I think everybody will be looking at Leicester and going, you know what, lads, you are fully bottling this now. If you get to this point in the season and you are top of the league by however many points, and then you drop off so suddenly that they have, unfortunately, you can only be labelled as bottlers. It's a simple fact. And as I say, they are peaking, the wrong type of peaking at the wrong time. You know, they're peaking in a bad way. Is that a thing? Can you peak in a bad way?
No, it's not. No,
it's a dip.
I don't know what
it's a dip. It's a dip. It's a dip because your peaks go up, your dips go down.
Yeah, they're doing the opposite of peaking, but I'm not sure what the opposite of peaking is. But yeah, you're right, Justin. He's talking utter bollocks, isn't he? And if he's not, I have no idea where he's got this confidence from that Leicester will still get automatic promotion. Because this is not the same Leicester team that we saw earlier in the season. It's not even a shadow of the team that they were. They look like their heads are completely gone, because the confidence just isn't there anymore. They're just capitulating. And this was arguably Leicester's most winnable game in their next four after the international break, because Bristol City have been woefully out of form. On Monday, they've got one of the form teams in the division in Norwich. Then they've got Birmingham, who should be on the up under Guy Rowett, although that's maybe a bit questionable after the game on Good Friday. And then it's Millwall, who have only lost to Leeds in their last six. So you've got to be massively concerned as a Leicester fan. I mean, we may be sat here in a couple of weeks' time and they may be back in form, you know, because they're so good in terms of the talent that they have. Things could change very quickly. But just look at the last few games. They've been so poor. And the way things are going, if this were to continue, Justin, we might not have a top two race in a few weeks' time, because Ipswich and Leeds may just go up comfortably.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think that's why we've got to look at it and go, well, how many points were they ahead of Leeds in January? 18 points, something ridiculous. 17 points. So they're at that far ahead of them in January, and then now this, Leeds have overtaken them and Ipswich have overtaken them. It's quite staggering. And as you say, it's not good enough. And I'm not going to sit on a high horse here, but the reason why I had question marks over Enzo Maresca at the start of the season, the reason why I didn't rate him so highly, is because I didn't know enough about him. And now we've got almost a full season of understanding the question marks that are being thrown at him and the challenges that he's facing. He's not yet showing that he's up to them, unfortunately. And I think that's the key thing with Enzo Maresca here, is he's failing. He's failing the things that he needs to pass at this stage in the season. You look at Kieran McKenna in Ipswich; they're not. Farker and Leeds, they're not. Other teams that are trying to hit their aspirations, they're not failing those challenges. Unfortunately, Leicester and Maresca are.
We should give credit to Bristol City, Justin. As I said earlier, they controlled large parts of this game against one of the best sides in the league, even though they might not be playing like it right now. But full credit to Liam Manning as well, who's been getting a lot of stick as well, Justin.
Yeah, I think this is such a strange game in a sense, because Bristol City look so comfortable at times. They look so comfortable, and they fully deserve the credit. They looked the most likely to win as well when they went ahead. At no point did I feel confident Leicester were going to go back into it, and that's more so down to the fact that how Bristol City shaped up. And I think the intriguing thing is now that Liam Manning's got wins over Leicester, Southampton, Hull, and Middlesbrough. These are teams that like to play possession-based football. And it's clear to see that Liam Manning's sides are struggling against teams that don't like to play possession football. So this is a clear sort of indicator as to that Pearson era where this Bristol City team were comfortable out of possession, and then it's transitioning into the Liam Manning era where he wants to play possession-based football. So I think there's a thing to take away from that, in that transition's still happening, and so it's probably a bit of food to take for Bristol City fans to not get on Liam Manning's back. He's still going through the process. But as I say, they were so good in this game. They were comfortable out of possession, played 5 at the back. They looked great. Jason Knight was brilliant in the middle of the park. Max O'Leary kept him in the game when they needed to. I was really impressed with the performances. I think if they play like that out of possession for the rest of the season, they will pick up results more often than not.
Yeah, I agree with that, Justin. I think this game goes to show what they can be like under Liam Manning. It's just about consistency, which is something they've definitely struggled with under him, amongst other things. And if they were to play like that a lot more often, then they would be in a much better state than they are right now. I mean, I'm very interested to see what they do in the summer, because the club hierarchy have been giving it the big guns about them pushing for the top 6 under Manning, but they're only going to do that if they back him, because at the moment the squad's not quite yet there. But a good transfer window, they might not be too far off. Justin, let's go to Leeds, who have dropped points for only the second time in 2024. They drew 2-2 away at Watford. I mean, we will say, first of all, for it to nearly be April and Leeds only dropping points twice this calendar year, this is absolutely mad. Whatever the case, though, this wasn't a great showing from Leeds, was it? And in fact, Watford will be probably quite disappointed that they didn't get all 3 points here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a perfect Friday night game. It was end to end. The first half was electric. There was a lot of quality on show as well, and some really tidy finishes. And under the lights, yeah, it was a fantastic fixture. But I think it's more of an indictment as to where Leeds were in this game. They had a lot of variables go against them going into the game. They had 3 players come back injured from the international break. You're coming up against a Watford side who have got new managers, therefore new belief, and you're under the lights on a Friday where I imagine everyone's had a few drinks on bank holiday. It was a nice day on Friday, so I imagine the beer gardens were full. The atmosphere at Vicarage Road was probably it was great. So I think that a lot of things working against Leeds. So didn't quite get going, but I think Watford fully deserving of at least something from this. But a great game, a fantastic game, a good prelude into the Easter weekend.
Yeah, Watford were really good up until the point they took Emmanuel Dennis off, really, and then after that it was pretty much a case of sitting back and holding on. But in complete fairness to them, they deserve to be ahead with both of their goals. Worth mentioning that the first 3 goals in this game are all beauties, particularly Crescencio Somerville's for Leeds. That was an absolute diamond. And I also didn't realise as well that Vakoum Bayo's goal was the first goal Leeds had conceded from open play in 2024, or at least that's what the Sky commentators were saying. I can't say I've checked it myself, but considering the small number of goals they have conceded this calendar year, it doesn't surprise me at all. In fairness to Leeds, they did have to move things around with Ethan Ampadu going into midfield and Liam Cooper coming in at the back. I mean, Ampadu's been sensational in defence, and they didn't look anywhere near as sturdy without him in that back line. But overall, Leeds were flat, and we haven't seen this side of Leeds for a long time. So is this a cause for concern? Perhaps the nerves getting to them, Justin?
I don't think it's about nerves. I think maybe Leicester losing, Ipswich winning, and having all of that happen before, because the players will watch the game. Having all that happen before they get going might edge things a little bit for them. But I think, as I was saying, that Leeds had a lot of variables to contend with. There was the injuries, there was the fact that Watford have got a new manager, new setup, new belief, etc. I think those things are going to work against them. I think it's a good point for Leeds. I really do, especially in the context of Leicester losing. I do think it's a good point. You're not going to win every game, so you've got to make sure you don't lose. And then you compare that to Leicester, who essentially lost, it can easily happen. I think what this means is Leeds can go into the game on Monday, hopefully get some of those players that have picked up knocks, get them back, and get them fit and go again. But there were quite a few players off it. Jorginho Russo was off it, but he did have a hernia operation in the international break, so that's not going to help things. And obviously, if Ethan Ampadu goes back into the defence on Monday, that might help things as well. So, yeah, there were things working against him here, and I think it was a good point in the context of all of that.
I enjoyed you saying Leicester essentially lost as opposed to Leicester did lose. But,
it's what Leicester fans will want me to say at this point.
It's going to be really interesting to see how Leeds respond on Easter Monday, because they've got a localish derby against Hull, who haven't been in great licks themselves, but are still, a team on the hunt for a top 6 place. So they've got to respond on Easter Monday, and if they don't, then I think the alarm bells may be ringing with Leeds as well. But at the moment, you're right. They can't. They're going to have these dips, aren't they? Just in these little blips where they do have a game where they don't play particularly well. So whether that continues or not, we'll only be able to find out on Monday. But I mean, what a couple of games for Tom Cleverley at Watford, Justin. Prior to being put in interim charge, Watford had won just 2 games in 14. And old Tommy Clevs has now won away at Birmingham and become only the second team this calendar year to take points against Leeds United. And really, they should have got more from that game. But it's not a bad start at all for Tommy Clevs, is it, Justin?
Yeah, and I think it was more so the game plan that impressed me. They looked the most prepared out of the 2 teams going into this game. I don't think that's a discredit to Leeds. I just think Tom Cleverley got his game plan absolutely perfect. They still created chances despite being out of possession or playing mostly out of possession. Leeds dominated the ball, but Watford were quite comfortable. It was almost a Valerian Ismail-esque performance in that they were quite direct at times. Watford, they were happy to sit deep and without the ball, but the game plan was there to let Leeds play in front of them, and they took their chances when they came. They allowed their quality to speak for itself. Emmanuel Dennis has been waiting for him to sort of pop up and really get going, and I thought he took his goal brilliantly. And Daniel Batman actually saved some shots, which I know Watford fans will have been gasping at that happening at times. But I think the game plan worked really well, and that's the thing that impressed me about Tom Cleverley. He got his tactics spot on in this game, and if he's doing that as a novice in this audition period that he's going through now, he might well get the job permanently. But yeah, great first 2 games. Birmingham's a difficult place to go and win at, by the way. I know they're going through their own thing, but St Andrews isn't an easy place to go and get points, and then they take points off Leeds as well. It's a fantastic start for old Clevs, for Roy Hodgson's prodigy.
Not sure about that. But it is only 2 games, so we shouldn't get carried away. However, if his ambition is to get the job full-time, then this is a great start, isn't it? The only issue I've got with him is he's the least manager-looking manager ever. I've never seen anyone who looks less like a manager than him. It probably doesn't help that he still looks about 25, but when the camera kept panning to him in the dugout, he just looks like a player in a tracksuit, Justin. He didn't feel like a manager I was looking at in that moment.
I'm trying to think of others. I think Russell Martin's got the vibe down quite well now. Like he looks quite slick, but he was. I imagine he was a manager who's going through that same thing. Gary Caldwell, for some reason, springs to my mind. He looks like a player who's a manager.
Random one, but fair.
Really random. I think Tom Cleverley, quite baby, quite youngish face. Floppy hair. I think he needs a manager haircut and maybe a bit of facial hair. He needs to look tired. That's what it is. He needs to look tired. He needs to look stressed. And maybe 3 months.
Years on Dunne too.
Yeah, maybe 3 months or 3 weeks at Watford will do that.
Yeah, I suppose Daniel Farker's not a very manager-looking manager.
Daniel Farker looks like a man who drives trains.
I don't have anything else to add on that. I was going to say he looks a bit like a bouncer. That's always when you go clubbing in Eastern Europe or something like that. He looks like the kind of bouncer you'd see there.
No, I think he looks like a guy
like a henchman
trains.
in a James Bond film.
Yeah, I can get the henchman thing. He sounds like a henchman as well, a little bit with his soft German accent. He's got a really soft accent actually. And maybe he would be good on trains, making those announcements on trains and stuff. Yeah, I can see that. I like that.
I'd be up for it. Yeah. Now, Justin, I was wondering if you could help me with something actually, because I'm a bit confused at the moment. I'm looking at the Championship table, and I think there's a mistake because it says Ipswich Town are top. Now, I know they beat Blackburn 1-0 on Good Friday, but I thought you ruled them out of getting automatically promoted last month. So this must be a mistake, right?
Listen. Leicester have got a game in hand on Ipswich, all right? let's not rule out the old bold fraud getting 3 points in that game in hand, Enzo Maresca, right? So let's cool it. Let's cool it, and let's chill the fuck out, Ryan, and get on with this analysis.
I'm not sure I will chill the fuck out. I mean, going on to the game, of course, Ipswich beating Blackburn 1-0 on Good Friday. I think it's fair to say Ipswich rode their luck a bit in this one. The goal came from a clanger by Ainsley Pears, and then Blackburn had 2 goals disallowed. Vaclav Hladky pulled off a ridiculous save after being caught in possession. And then Ipswich spent the majority of the second half camped in their own half. But look, it doesn't matter, because it's another huge win for the Ipswich going up tractor, Justin, and they continue to fly along.
They absolutely do. I can't discredit the performance. It wasn't vintage Ipswich. You know, you compare that 6-0 win over Sheffield Wednesday to this one. Completely different performances. But that's a good thing. That's a really, really good thing, because winning becomes a habit. And if you make winning a habit at this stage in the season, you know, habits are very hard to ignore and get rid of. It becomes muscle memory. It becomes second nature. So if you're winning games and winning rugby at this point in the season, doesn't matter how you do it. You get 3 points on the board. You're in a very good place to go up. Because if you compare them to Leicester, winning's not a habit for the old Foxes, is it? It's difficult. They're finding it very, very difficult to get going. Whereas Ipswich aren't. They took the chances. They rode their luck. You know, Hladky, as you say, did his very best to try and make things difficult and try and, you know, have fans gasping in stress and whatever other emotion they'd have gone through. But it's full credit to McKenna and getting that 3 points away at Blackburn, because again, John Eustace has really shored Rovers up and made him hard to break down, hard to beat, and that showed.
Yeah, it was a dirty win, wasn't it? Ipswich haven't had many dirty wins this season, but considering they're so used to, you know, having the tractor, and they shouldn't be afraid of a bit of dirt, should they? So it was a dirty win, and sometimes, I mean, these wins are just as important as ones where they win 6-0, aren't they? So sometimes you've got to do that, and they did it well. But look, Justin, the tractor, ladies and gentlemen, the tractor. It's like the bloody DeLorean from Back to the Future right now. It's leaving flaming tyre tracks wherever it goes. It's a thing of beauty, Justin Peach, and it's looking better than ever. In all seriousness, though, if you said at the start of the season that Ipswich Town would be top of the Championship with 7 games remaining, everyone would think you're mad, wouldn't they? But here we are. This is the reality of the situation. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, before I start to praise Ipswich, I'm going to take issue with your movie reference. The DeLorean broke down several times. You need to pick your references better. Okay?
Yes, after it got to its destination, though.
It did get to its destination, but at the same time, it got stuck in that destination. So let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah,
all
it's
right?
going to get stuck in the Premier League, is what's happening, Justin.
Fair play, sir. No, you are absolutely right, and it is an incredible rise. Look, to be where they are, I mean, we can keep banging this drum, but to be where they are and how they've got there, they've booked, and they've had to book so many trends. We've talked about finances, so let's put that to one side. But honestly, the way they attack, the way they play, to be so open and to accumulate so many points doing that at this stage in the season, I think is, you know, extraordinary. And to contend with the injuries that they've got. Let's go back to the start of the season when you were worried when Christian Moulton got injured and you know, worried about Vaclav Hladky coming in. I mean, to be fair, he did keep a clean sheet yesterday, but he also did his very best to concede a goal to Sammy Schmodix. But you know, there were concerns about, you know, injuries coming into the team and the depth that the squad had, but McKennan's answered those questions. George Hurst, you know, they showed up. Ipswich showed up when George Hurst got injured. Became difficult to beat, dropping points, but they weren't losing games. Lots of players as well were signed when the club was in League One, and I think that's a key thing that you need to take away from this. A lot of players were signed when the club was a third-tier team. Not a Championship team, a third-tier team. This is essentially a League One squad propped up with a little bit of quality from elsewhere, and it's doing the business. Can't complain at that.
No, And I won't complain at all, Justin. I mean, I've been giving record amounts of praise to Ipswich this season, and it just seems to they just seem to reach new levels, because for them to be top of the league at this stage is simply mind-blowing, particularly against the competition that they're up against at the top. And they had that spell around the new year where they won 1 in 9, and it seemed like they were fading. But the response since then has been nothing short of incredible. And I imagine it's a bit frustrating that they had that collapse against Cardiff, otherwise they'd be 4 points clear at the top right now. Whatever the case, they're in an amazing position, and while they still might not get promoted, they've got some tricky games coming up, but everyone has been talking about Leicester and Leeds, who's going to win the title. Well, here's Ipswich Town putting in their claim. And I mean, you laughed at me for suggesting that not too long ago, Justin, lest we forget.
No, I did, and I think I still might laugh at you at that, but I think it's only because I'm taking into context where Ipswich have come from. Maybe I'm being complacent as to the Leeds' position and the squad that they've got and Daniel Farker, and I'm completely ruling Ipswich out mainly because they've come from League One. They've got Kieran McKenna, who's a relative
novice.
Still
ruling Ipswich out, are you then, from winning the league?
I think I am, yes. I mean, if I'm going to make a decision, I'd rather
Justin,
No.
Justin,
Shush.
You're making such a rod for your own back, and you just can't help yourself.
No, I'm not.
No, hang on. This time last month, or maybe just over a month ago, you ruled Ipswich out of getting automatically promoted, and they're still well in the hunt for that. And then you also laughed at me for saying Ipswich could win the league, and now you're ruling that out as well. What? You need to stop doing this to yourself. I'm trying to protect you here.
Okay, I'll say that I'm not ruling it out, but I'm going to side with Leeds in terms of the title.
That's fine, but don't rule it out.
I'm not going to rule it out. I mean, the position they're in now, it'd be foolish to rule it out. But I just fancy Leeds for it. And in terms of the top two, I mean, I should have foreseen Maresca bottling it, but unfortunately, I cannot. Unlike your DeLorean, your Ipswich DeLorean, I cannot go into the future and see what's going on.
Ipswich have got Southampton on Monday, which is a huge game, isn't it? A huge game. So that's one I'm firmly going to be looking at on the edge of my seat on Easter Monday with my Easter egg in tow, Justin. I mean, it is no win in 9 now for Blackburn, but I thought they played really well here, and they could probably take encouragement from this defeat in their fight to stay up, can't they?
I think they can. Look, I know it's a hindsight thing, but you take that error out of the game from Ainsley Pearce. Does the game finish 0-0? Maybe. Did Blackburn take a 1-0 winner? They were knocking on the door for quite a considerable time. Sammy Schmodix was really small moments and really small factors away from taking the lead giving Rovers an equaliser when you close down Hladky. If he got his feet sorted out quicker, they could have taken something from it. There's a lot there to take away for Blackburn, and I think with John Eustace, yes, they're not winning games, but they're harder to break down, they're harder to beat. They are going to find chances, they are going to create chances because they've got the quality to do it. It's just about giving them the belief to do it. And I think when you compare them to other teams around there, Huddersfield, Sheffield Wednesday, Birmingham, I think Blackburn are in a slightly better position. Still precarious, but slightly better position.
Yeah, well, only one of their 7 remaining games is against a team outside of the top 13, and that includes 3 of the top 4. So it's quite difficult to nail down where the results are going to come from between now and the end of the season. However, while Blackburn are still yet to win under John Eustace, they're definitely much tougher to beat. They've drawn 6 of his 9 league games in charge, and look, if they play like they did against Ipswich in each of their remaining games, I'd be very surprised if they went down. That's obviously easier said than done, particularly with who they've got to play, but the Ipswich game was certainly a cause for encouragement, I would say, and that's all you can take from a game when you end up leaving with 0 points. A 90th minute equaliser from Emmanuel Latte-Lath saw Middlesbrough draw 1-1 away at Southampton. A missed opportunity really for Russell Martin's side. They missed some glorious chances here, and considering the results above them, could have made some precious grounds on a team above them. But as I say, they have got Ipswich on Monday. That may be their last chance to try and stay in the automatic promotion race, might it? Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll talk about the relegation battle and, of course, do footballers our listeners have met in strange places. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast, and it's now time for us to check out how our second tier multiple with SBK got on, which included our Game of the Week, as well as Justin and I's 2 bankers from Thursday's preview show. So we had Norwich, good, Preston, yes, and Leicester, bollocks. Honestly, honestly, Justin, Jamie Vardy has cost us our multiple and our bet builder in one swift go. Bloody bottlers. Bottlers, mate. But we'll be back with another multiple in this coming Friday's preview show with SBK. So we look forward to seeing you then. But first, Justin, before we get on to rest of the games from the Championship, we've got another round of football that our listeners have met in strange places. And this first one is from Callum Thurlbeck, who says, "G'day, Virgins. When I was working at a farm park, I had to drive a kids' train ride. After finishing one ride, I was waiting for the kids to get out, only to see Grant Holt waiting for his kids. He couldn't have been less interested about spending his day off at a family-friendly farm park, so I decided it best to leave him alone. All the best, Callum." Good. I like that. It's one of those, that's another perfect mix of strange place, but also cult hero kind of player, Justin.
Yeah, Grant Holt, what a guy. Yeah, and he ventured into wrestling as well, which is even more impressive. He's just had a really interesting post career. Now he's visiting family fun parks, which again, I imagine is such a come down from wrestling and playing football.
Well, I don't know how long ago this was, whether this was pre or post his wrestling career, or maybe even in between.
During.
Who knows? Who knows, Justin? But I'm glad to see. I'm glad to see he's having well, it sounds like he's not having a nice time at family farm park, so who knows. Anyway, this one is from Barney Fagan. He's been in touch. He says, "Hey guys, love the pod. I had a part-time job as a teenager at a cinema. We used to rent..."
For some reason, I heard that as I had a part-time job as a teenager.
"We used to rent out screens for private events. One morning, there was a young girls' party, and as they were all singing along to Frozen, I realised the dad at the party was none other than Luke Young. As a QPR fan, I asked him about how things were. He said things had taken a turn for the worse since Steve McLaren left for Derby, but he thought we'd squeeze through the playoffs." So I assume this was kind of 2013, 2014 kind of time. And Justin, they did. Luke Young is the oracle. I used to really like Luke Young. I think he was a really underrated player.
He's really consistent. Obviously, he had a few England caps as well.
Seven England caps.
Yeah, but he was never going to get, because I know he played right back and left back. I mean, he was never going to get ahead of Ashley Cole. He was certainly never going to get ahead of Gary Neville, and then Glenn Johnson came onto the scene as well. But yeah, I think it's very unfortunate that it was in between periods. He was great for Charlton, again, a cult team in the Premier League, that Charlton side.
He's just one of those who must have played hundreds of games at Premier League level, but never really got the credit for it because he was just a really solid player. And this final one is from Tom Pickett. He says, "Hi lads, when I was working at a drive-through coffee shop near Southampton a few years ago, Stuart Armstrong and Yannick Vestergaard were regular customers. They used to carpool together to training, getting a cortado and a small black Americano. This begs the question, which Championship player would you most like to drive to work with?" It's a great question, Tom. Who would you say, Justin?
Steve Cook. He seems a bit of a loose cannon, and he loves Football Manager as well.
Does he? I never knew that.
Yeah, he plays it. Okay. So we can just talk about that if things get a bit bland in the car, bit awkward.
I would go for Luke 09 because I just think every day would be different. He's mad as a hatter, and you won't know whether half the things he's saying are actually true or not because he'd just say something along the lines of, "Oh, I saved a dog yesterday." I'm like, "Yeah, good one, Luke." It's just every day will be a roller coaster. I think it'd be really, really fun. Anyway, Justin, let's go on to some of the games from the relegation battle, and an absolute worldie from Jimmy Dunne saw QPR beat Birmingham 2-1 in a big relegation 6-pointer. 92nd minute, a centre-back playing at right-back, hitting a half volley with his weaker foot from 25 yards out. Justin Peach, what on earth?
It is astonishing in front of the home end as well at that point in the game, in what feels like a relegation 6-pointer as well, and you win your team 3 points scoring like that. It is outstanding. And look, Glenn Johnson won. I think his goal for Portsmouth all those years ago, I think it won goal of the season. He's Glenn Johnson'd it. He's absolutely Glenn Johnson it. A right back scoring like that. It's just wow. You cannot get better than that. Unreal.
Yeah, his first goal since December 2022, by the way. An absolute beauty. And it's not just a swing of a foot kind of thing either, is it? The technique is superb. But I mean, what a moment. And it might be the moment which sends QPR off on their merry way to safety. To be fair, their form in 2024 has been sending them in that direction anyway, but they're now 18th and 4 points clear of the bottom three. after this. It's a huge result, Justin.
Yeah, they've lost 2 in 12. They've been really, really good. They're in great form. And that's why I'm a bit surprised that you're not overly convinced by them, or haven't been overly convinced by them. And, it's not a dig. It's just a surprise factor. That is a dig. I'm always going to dig at you. Everybody should give a dig at you for that, for those thoughts behind QPR. But look, they went behind this game as well, and they bounced back. They had 3 good chances in the first half in this game, didn't take them, went behind. And as I say, they got back into the game and eventually won it with an absolute worldie. It's the sort of game that will give you confidence going into the next one, which is exactly what Cifuentes needs out of this team. And I think Cifuentes deserves a huge amount of credit. He probably won't win manager of the season, but I think if he guides QPR into safety, he'll be in my top 3 quite easily, because the job he's done at Loftus Road is just astonishing.
I mean, you're giving me stick for my QPR prediction for them to go down. I will point out the team that you predicted to go down are currently above QPR in the Championship table, but less said about that, the better. Look, I mean, QPR, they're in a really, really good position now. I think that's completely undeniable. And while I was a bit sceptical about the Marty Cifuentes... Hang on, you didn't let me finish my sentence, Justin. While I was a bit sceptical about the Marty Cifuentes appointment, which is what I was going to say, when that came in, I've never denied that the job he's done in the time that he's been at QPR has been brilliant. He has done a really, really good job. And when it comes to predicting who's going to go down, like we did last week during the international break, that was always a death trap anyway, because we were going to look silly, whoever we predicted, because it's just an absolute minefield predicting who the hell's going to go down, as you are maybe with Stoke now, Justin. But look, QPR's next 3 games are Swansea, Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth. 3 very winnable games compared to a somewhat trickier final 4, but they're in a really good position at QPR. It might even be the case that one more win does it, just because plenty of the teams below them are really struggling to pick up any form of points, let alone wins. So it's a really, really good state that QPR are in. But this was Gary Rowett's first game back in charge of Birmingham. Not really sure how to assess this game from their perspective, because you can't really compensate for a centre-back scoring his first goal in over a year on the volley from 25 yards out, can you? Rowett says his side need to get back to basics. What do you think, Justin?
I mean, he's stating the obvious. He's right. He's absolutely right, but he's stating the obvious. I think if you compare them to John Eustace's team, they were really good at doing that. They were really good at getting back to the basics. And you had Wayne Rooney come in and try and deploy a system that the players just weren't suited to. And then Tony Mowbray... It was just shit, yeah. It was shit. And then Tony Mowbray was a bit more forward-thinking, but he was unable to get momentum because of circumstances surrounding him. So I think Rowett coming in and just stripping it all back is the absolute way to go. Absolute way to go. And look, if it wasn't for a right-back scoring the best goal he's ever going to score in his career, Birmingham take a point back to the West Midlands, and they'll go home pretty pleased with that.
Yeah, you're spot on, Justin. You're spot on. Like, that's just one of those things that happens, and you can't really do too much about it, can you? When it's happened that late in the game as well, it's just balmy. But Birmingham at this stage just have to do whatever they can to get any form of results, because 1 point from 7 games is obviously appalling. And so if that means going back to basics, bringing back some classic Rowett shithousery, then so be it. It's quite an obvious thing to say, but it would be a terrible look for these new owners at Birmingham if they were to go down. I mean, for many different factors, really, but the latest being that they've reportedly just bought a plot of land in Birmingham to build a new, and I quote, super stadium. That stadium's not going to look very good in League One, is it? So they've got Preston at home on Monday, and that has to be a result. Even a draw would be good enough at this stage, I would say. Just anything to stop this freefall. That's the kind of position Birmingham are in right now. And, I mean, a win, as we've seen with QPR, can see you climb really high in the table, can see you leap up a number of places. So that's what they've got to do when they head into this game on Monday. Let's go to probably the accumulator buster of the weekend. Hull 0, Stoke 2. Not a result I saw coming, but fair play to Stephen Schumacher and Stoke. A huge result for them, Justin.
I think the incredible thing about this game was actually before it took place is the reaction from Stoke fans after seeing the starting 11. It was incredible. So many conceded defeat at the point of seeing the starting 11. But fair play to Stoke and Schumacher for getting a result. It was probably Stoke's best performance under Schumacher since he took charge in December. and certainly one that's going to provide belief. It was a complete performance from them. They were really, really good. I mean, Hull didn't have a shot on target, for goodness sake, and this is against a Stoke side who are really bad at being good. They're not effective. They're not effective at keeping teams out. They make chances and they give. They make it hard for themselves and they give opposition chances. But Hull didn't take advantage of any of those misgivings that Stoke have done in the past because Stoke was so effective here. Need to follow it up, absolutely, but this certainly was, as I say, their best performance under Steven Schumacher, and what a time for it to come.
Yeah, well, considering they were comfortably beaten at home by Norwich just before the international break, it made a result like this seem pretty unlikely. But going back to what we were saying about Birmingham a second ago, Stoke almost went back to basics with a good old 4-4-2, and it paid off. That included Josh Laron, who's traditionally a midfielder playing up front, and he got on the score sheet, so a great result for them. And because it's so tight down there, and we were just alluding to this a second ago, Justin, one win seemingly changes everything, particularly when it's only them and QPR who are the only teams in the bottom 11 to win on Good Friday. They're now up to 17th and are 5 points clear of the bottom three. Mm-hmm. How quickly things can change. So they've got more games coming up, which you would have said were actually much more winnable than the Hull game on paper. And that includes a massive game against Huddersfield, on Monday. But they've got to head into that and be thinking, right, we've got a bit of momentum. It is only one game, but it's such a huge result that it could be the thing that kind of kickstarts them towards safety. Speaking of Huddersfield, a brace from Ellis Sims saw Huddersfield lose 3-1 to Coventry, a big game this in the relegation battle and race for the playoffs. But in the end, it was a very comfortable one for Coventry, who probably should have won by more. And if it wasn't for Lee Nichols in the Huddersfield goal, they probably would have. It's looking very precarious for Huddersfield, isn't it? Just one win in 6 under new manager Andre Brighton-Writer. Justin, not looking good.
Yeah, I don't want to say the really basic way of putting it, but for Huddersfield, the basics just weren't done in the game. They did create chances, but there just wasn't enough quality at all. I know Josh Cromer had a chance in the first half that he didn't take, but for me, it just like a side that lacked confidence and belief in what they were doing. And when you bring a new manager in, the opposite's supposed to happen, but it feels like that initial enthusiasm has waned a little bit. And if I'm going back to the basics, mentioning the stats, there were 9 offsides in this game. All nine were made by Huddersfield. I know there's a difference in quality in the forward line. I know Ellis Sims costs a lot of money and Haji Wright costs a lot of money. But come on, it's the basics. Stay on side, man. If you can't stay on side, you're not going to create any attacks. And I am sort of laughing through my teeth a little bit, but unfortunately Huddersfield weren't particularly anywhere near the quality that Coventry were, and that's why Coventry punished them when they went forward.
Well, he came in with a big reputation, this being Andre Brighton-Writer, of managing to overachieve with teams, and that made him seem like a really good fit for Huddersfield. And he got a win in his first game against Watford, and then they were the first team to take points against Leeds this calendar year. So it was a really promising start for Brighton-Writer, wasn't it? But they've lost to Cardiff, West Brom and Coventry, and are the only team Rotherham didn't lose to in the last 11 games. And the last 3 games in particular have been very concerning. One of Brighton-Writer's other things he was renowned for was playing on the front foot and pressing teams, but we're yet to really see that. And it makes me wonder whether he's looked at this squad and thought, God, we're really not that good. I mean, they do have some good players like Jack Radoni, Sorba Thomas, he was suspended against Coventry. Alex Matos has looked bright when I've seen him. But it's what we've been saying all season, Justin, isn't it? By and large, this is one of the weakest squads in the division, and maybe Dre's just now finding that out. The thing is, though, they had a caretaker manager who was doing really well before he came in with essentially the same tools.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing that you want to take into account here is that John Worthington was doing a really good job, really good job. And it's not about whether someone knows the team better, but John Worthington had a better view of the players at the squad.
He knew the team better.
He knew the team better, and Brighton Wright's come in, he's had to start again. Alex Matos has been out of the team since Brighton Wright came in, for example, which isn't ideal because Matos is one of the brighter players that I've seen play for Huddersfield since he came in January. The forwards that they signed in Healy and it hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out, and unfortunately, you've got to point the fingers at the owners for maybe getting things wrong. Pretty much, it's pretty basic, but yeah, a lot of things gone wrong.
Well, there's going to be a big autopsy if Huddersfield do go down, isn't there? But it's based off what we've seen from the last 4 games in particular. It's massively concerning the way that they're playing at the moment, and it's not happening at a good time as well, is it, Justin? I don't think that needs pointing out. Great win for Coventry, though. It's 4 wins on the bounce now for them. Ellis Sims got a brace. He's now scored 12 goals in 9 games. Crazy how much his form has turned around, and one of them is an absolute peach as well. Haji Wright scored again. England's Ben Sheaf is back in the team and playing superbly. It just feels like things are clicking at the right time for them, and it's going to be tricky because they've still got to play Leeds, Southampton, Ipswich, I think a couple of the teams chasing the playoffs as well. But I tell you what, I don't think any of the sides who I mentioned there will be looking forward to playing Coventry either, will they, Justin?
No, it's good. They're going to be awkward games. And I think it's just, when you take in the context of Coventry pushing for the playoffs, they've got to fit in a game in hand, and probably another game in hand with the FA Cup semi-final coming up. So it's going to be a big ask for them to punch themselves into the top 6, but they're going to make a good fucking go of it, aren't they? Because they are hitting form at a great time. You've got Haji Wright and Ellis Sims in great form. Ellis Sims is one of the, I think he's the most informed forward in the country, by the way, which is staggering. He scored an incredible amount of goals. Then you've got Haji Wright, who obviously sent Coventry to an FA Cup semi-final. He sent the US into the CONCACAF Nations League final. He's had a really good fortnight. So you've got players in form. 4 players are in form. As I say, they're going to give anybody a really, really rough ride in between now and the end of the season and give themselves a really good chance of getting into that top 6.
Absolutely. Justin, let's actually, just before we do the polls and Simon Grayson's Hateful, I wanted to ask you about comments made in the past few days by West Ham owner David Sullivan. So he was speaking to The Sun and defended Premier League clubs for not agreeing a financial package with the EFL. And in the interview, he said Championship clubs should manage their finances better and stop paying silly money, while criticising clubs who are paying players 40 grand a week and managers £1 million a year. That's despite when West Ham were last in the Championship with David Sullivan as their owner, they were paying club captain Kevin Nolan 50 grand a week and manager Sam Allardyce 1.25 million a year. The irony here, Justin, the irony is so palpable, isn't it?
Yeah, there's something about people in glass houses throwing stones. Don't do it. It's quite staggering. I'm not really surprised because David Sullivan comes across as one of those pleb football owners who just doesn't get it, who just doesn't understand.
We might have to knock this pleb thing on the head, Justin.
Why? Because you're scared I'll get a lawsuit. What's going on?
No. I know it's not a bad word, but it sounds like a bad word. And also, it's the only word you use now, all of a sudden. No,
it's only to describe a certain person. It's usually surrounding football owners who are just out of touch with what football needs to be. And this is, it's exactly why there needs to be a regulator, because a regulator would have come in and said, you're spending too much money when West Ham are in the Championship. And therefore, it would have become a theme. It would have become a thing for football clubs not to be doing that. And therefore, we wouldn't have that problem now. I don't think we have that problem now as such, because a lot of football clubs have wised up. Yes, clubs going down from the Premier League are going to have that hangover from spending in a top flight, but I don't think you've got mid-table Championship teams doing that. I just don't think you do, and the results, the financial results, will reflect that.
Yeah, you're right, Justin. I think if he was making these comments, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, then he'd have more of an argument. But I don't think the argument that he's making here is as strong as it once was. But I'm just stunned by the utter hypocrisy here. But they're not the only ones here being hypocrites. Essentially, every team outside the traditional Big Six, and perhaps a handful of others, there's a good chance any of them could be playing Championship football within the next 5 years. And then I'm sure they would be the ones begging for this financial package to be coming in. It's completely shameless greed, and it's no surprise to see that David Sullivan has recently been campaigning against the football regulator. I wonder why. Honestly, they're not even trying to hide it. These people do not care about the EFL or the supporters of those clubs. All they care about is increasing the contents of their wallets, these fat little piggies, and it makes me sick. But I'm going to love it when the regulator comes in and makes a lot of big wigs in the Premier League very unhappy, like David Sullivan, etc.
I want a stone cold Steve Austin-like entrance for this regulator. Just stone cold stun every single owner within a ring, at a stadium, at Wembley. Let's just do it. Beer cans everywhere. Need it.
Sounds good.
Need
I'm
it.
up for it. Justin, let's do the polls. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter because we want to get their thoughts on everything to do with the Championship. So the first question we asked was this: who is winning the league? Ipswich, Leeds, Leicester.
Leeds.
60% of people said Leeds. But I'll tell you what, this is quite a damning thing, Justin. 26% of people said Ipswich. Only 14% said Leicester City. Only 14%. Wow. Who do you think will get 6th place? Coventry, Hull, Norwich, Preston. Now, you said Norwich during the international break, didn't you, Justin?
I did, yeah. I'll stick with Norwich. I mean, Preston convincingly beat Rotherham. It's not a difficult thing to do, but they put themselves within the conversation. Coventry, maybe a bit too far off, but yeah, I've got to stick with Norwich.
How are Coventry too far off?
I just think with the games, they've got games to play in between now and the end of the season, so I think it's going to be a little bit too much for them.
I mean, again, it sounds like you're rolling teams out when
you asked the question, I answered.
Okay, right, but all I'm saying is you don't have to completely commit to Norwich. You could just say, I think Norwich, Coventry has still got a very good chance, though.
I think Norwich will do it.
Okay. 43% of people said Norwich, 42% said Coventry. So it's bloody tight. I think it's quite damning to see that Hull, only 12% said Hull. I think quite a few neutrals not too long ago would have said Hull to get in the playoffs, but it goes to show how much they've slipped off a bit in the last few weeks. And then only 3% said Preston. Poor Preston. And finally, who makes the best chocolate? Cadbury, Galaxy or Lindt?
Is it Galaxy? See, Lindt and Galaxy are so close. I'd go with Cadbury, but Cadbury's such a basic bitch chocolate. So I might go with Galaxy. Lindt's too much. It's too much.
I used to really love Cadbury, but I've gone off it a bit recently. It hurts my teeth, I think.
It's because you clean your teeth once a day. That's a problem. They're not very healthy.
Maybe you're right. But other chocolates don't hurt my teeth, really. But Cadbury does. I like Tony's. You ever had Tony's, Justin?
Tony's is good, but my God, that's like chewing bricks sometimes. It's hard,
good, but it's like chewing bricks.
It's hard chocolate, but once you get into it, once it melts in your mouth, it's good. But
stick in the microwave for a bit, mate. You'll be fine. 53% of people said Cadbury, 24% said Galaxy, 23% said Lindt. Now it's time for this.
Hi, Simon Grayson here.
Yes, it's time for Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight. So I'm going to ask Justin to name 8 of a certain subject. All he's got to do is name all 8. So, for example, if I would say name Steve Bruce's last 8 clubs, and he would say Villa, that's 1 down, Newcastle, that's another down. But if Justin were to then say Weymouth, he would lose a life. So all he needs to do is give me all 8 answers without losing all of his lives. And you can get involved in the fun by sending in your Hateful Eights for either Justin or I to answer. Send them into secondtierpod@gmail.com, and you could get a shout out the next time we do a Hateful Eight. This is a really good Hateful Eight, Justin. A really great question, and it's from Josh Sanders. He says, "Hi, gents. There are 8 teams who have played in the Championship since it was rebranded in 2004, who are now playing in League 2 or below. Can you name them?" I think this is a really, really good question, Justin, and I'm willing to give you 2 lives on it, Peachy. Who is your first suggestion?
2 lives, wow. I'll go with Yeovil. That's the easy one for me.
Yes, Yeovil Town. They're now playing in the 6th tier, National League South, only in the Championship 10 years ago, although they are currently on course for promotion. So that's 1 down, Justin.
Doncaster Rovers.
Doncaster Rovers, yes, that is correct. They had 5 seasons in the Championship, even finishing in the top half once upon a time, but are now floundering in League 2. That's 2 down.
Scunthorpe United.
Scunthorpe United, yes, that is also correct. They are currently the lowest ranked side who used to be in the Championship, with Scunthorpe now playing in the National League North, having only been in the 2nd tier in 2011. 2011, wow. That is 3 down, Justin.
This is tricky now. I think they were the easy ones. They felt like the easy ones. Trying to think of teams in League 2 now.
Yeah, here we go. Here comes he's sweating, ladies and gentlemen.
Here comes the pain.
The beads of sweat.
Yeah. trying to buy
Gonna have
myself
to
some
push you.
time. No, shush.
You're gonna have- no, I'm
no,
gonna
you
have to
don't
push
have.
you here, Justin.
No, you don't have to push me. This is a hard.
You have
question.
taken so long on this. We're not even halfway through yet.
Fine. I'll say Gillingham.
Was that a guess or was that an accurate?
I'll say Gillingham. If you didn't pause for so long, all right, I would have more time to think of some answers. So I'm saying Gillingham. It's right. I know it's right. So let's move on to the next one.
Fine. That's what I was asking. You're very touchy today. Gillingham. They were relegated from the first season of the Championship in 2005 and, of course, are now in League Two. So that means you're halfway there, Justin.
Milton Keynes Dons.
Milton Keynes Dons is correct. They were relegated from the Championship as recently as 2016. Can't believe they were in the Championship in 2016, can you? They're now in League Two, so that is correct. That means you've got 3 left, Justin.
I don't know if it's worth saying AFC Wimbledon. I'm going to say AFC Wimbledon. I know they reformed, but Wimbledon were relegated. I want to say it was the 04-05 season.
AFC Wimbledon is not correct because they're a new club.
No,
MK Dons.
see...
MK Dons are technically Wimbledon of old, so that doesn't count, I'm afraid. So that means Justin Peach has lost his first life. He's got 1 life remaining.
So these League Two. I'm still sort of swimming around League Two a little bit. Walsall.
Walsall is incorrect, I think. Isn't it? I'm doubting myself now. I mean, I didn't have that down. Hang on a sec.
They got relegated. They got relegated under Paul Merson, but I can't remember what year it was.
Oh, here we go.
It may have been 03-04.
Walsall got relegated the season before they got rebranded to the Championship. God, you made me sweat there, Justin. I thought Josh made me look a fool then for a sec. So unfortunately, Justin, you've lost. You made me sweat on that last one, but unfortunately, that is incorrect. How do you feel?
Yeah, disappointed. I have just loaded up. I just loaded up League Two, the League Two table now. I'm quite disappointed to get some of these.
Go on then.
Really disappointed. Crew.
Yep.
Yeah, Crew are a good team. Dean Ashton and co. Then there was Colchester as well, who were fantastic under Gerard Williams when they first came up. Jamie Curtin was top goal scorer.
Yep. And then who's the last one?
Who is the last one? Are they a non-league side?
He doesn't know, ladies and gentlemen. No. I'll put you out of your misery, Justin. Think Freddie Eastwood.
No, Southend. Shit.
Yes, Southend United, now competing in the National League, but were in the Championship for 1 season in 2006-07. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Justin has fallen foul to Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight, and this has been the Second Tier Podcast. We'll be back again on Tuesday to review all the Easter Monday games coming up in the Championship. So we bloody look forward to seeing you then. But ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful few days for Easter. I hope you get loads of Easter eggs, loads of chocolate, etc. And we'll reconvene, shall we, on Tuesday. Sound good? Great. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.